Welcome back to your Hofstra Vibes Family Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Halmendaller. I'm a first-year master's student in the Hofstra Forensic Linguistics program, and I'm also the grad assistant in the Office of Intercultural Engagement and Inclusion, which is why today I'm so excited to be talking today by our very own Hugo Morales, Associate Director for Intercultural Engagement and Inclusion. I've been working with Hugo since August of last year, so I'm really excited to chat today about what our office can do for students. How are you today, Hugo?
I'm pretty good, Jenny. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. So, just to start off in a nutshell, what is the Office of Intercultural Engagement and Inclusion?
So, Intercultural Engagement and Inclusion is an office that's dedicated to supporting students from marginalized communities, students of color, and helping them succeed, giving them the tools that they need to be successful here at Hofstra, being able to advocate for themselves, build connections with people within their own communities and outside their communities. We work with faculty and staff to develop programs so students can develop their intercultural competencies and be able to connect with faculty and staff. So it's not so scary being able to speak to your professors or speak to someone who works here at Hofstra so they can have a genuine connection with them outside of the classroom.
And so the Office of IEI, as we call it, is pretty student-facing. And so how did you sort of get started in this line of work for advocating for inclusion for students specifically?
In my previous institution, I was the fraternity sorority life advisor at the university, and I saw that there was a missing piece. I had a coworker of mine who, around the time that I started, was leaving, and I was interested in the work that she was doing. So I just started asking her questions about like, hey, how did you get into this line of work? What brought you here to this university? And we just had really good conversations. And I just started helping her with programs. And I really started like enjoying it. I enjoyed creating spaces for students. I really enjoyed just making connections with students that needed a little extra love, as I always like to say. And this just inspired me to continue doing the work. I like touched on it in my previous institution. And when I saw the opening here, I was like, this is more of an opportunity for me to connect with more students. Because if you're in student affairs, you love to work with students. That was my opportunity to kind of grow and get to come to Hofstra and be able to connect with more people, more students, more faculty and staff, etc.
Recording this episode in early 2025, diversity, equity, and inclusion are definitely big topics right now. So for you, what does inclusion really mean?
I like to think of this whole topic as like a dinner table. Everyone has a seat at that table. Everyone can come from wherever their backgrounds are, from wherever their life experiences are, and we can come sit down together at the same table, at the same height, enjoying the same meal, give or take any food allergies, and be able to like connect and get to know each other on an authentic level. And to me, that's what inclusion means, us being at the same table together and genuinely getting to know each other and building those beautiful connections.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because that's a good segue into the kind of programming that IEI often does. A lot of our programs include food, they include tables. And so could you talk a little bit more specifically about what the events and what the programming is at Hofstra from IEI?
So there certainly are lots of tables and lots of food that are programs. If you feed them, they will come is the thing that I always like to say. But what our programs focus on, they're focused on identity. So we have an example of that is our identity series of programs, which include La Bienvenida, which was a mixer event for Hispanic and Latinx students, Black at Hofstra, Queer at Hofstra, Women at Hofstra, and the list goes on. The focus of these programs is identity. So bringing people from these communities, faculty, staff, and students to come together and make connections. I think there's such a beautiful thing when you're able to connect with someone that shares some piece of your identity. As a student, at least I like to think so, as a student can see somebody that identify as you, in a higher position, and intrinsically that gives you the motivation to say, so and so did this. I can do that too, despite our experiences in our homes or previous communities or whatever that said that we couldn't. But because we have these sort of events, that shows our students that they can achieve anything. We don't really say that, but that's I like to explain how our programs are, and that's how I find them to be beneficial.
Yeah, and it's also just not the Identities at Hofstra series. Like, we're often doing things like a business expo coming up specifically for Black students and Black local businesses. We have the same thing for women coming up in March. Let's see, what else do we have? We have like financial planning kind of seminars.
Yes, that's coming up too. There's a program that it's called the State of Queer Affairs, which I'm working with the LGBTQ plus studies department, student counseling as well, to talk about the state of the world in terms of the LGBTQ plus community, what's going on out there, what services, resources here at Hofstra we have to support our students, and what local community partners we have or in connection with to kind of help students throughout their journey, not just here, but even after Hofstra. And like the Black Business Expo, we like to highlight student businesses. So in this case, the Black Business Expo is Black students and highlighting them and their entrepreneurial spirit, giving them a space, a platform to have a table to showcase what they do on the side, like their side gigs sort of thing. And this year, what we're doing is we connected with local businesses through other offices that are collaborating with us on this program to come and table as well to showcase the Black businesses in our local community too. And we're also doing a business panel where Black business leaders are going to discuss their experiences being business owners, their experiences getting to this point, and any challenges they may experience as well, and sharing that out with students. The Women's Business Expo most likely will be something similar. And in the fall semester, we hosted a Dia de los Muertos event, which we worked in collaboration with our Community Student Association to talk about Dia de los Muertos and how the difference between that holiday and Halloween, because oftentimes people kind of confuse the two because they're generally around the same time of year. These are sort of things that we do outside of the Identity series. Our office is working to also an event that you're going to be spearheading is a Speak Your Language event.
Very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for that program and another program that our LGBTQ plus peer educator is going to be leading, which will most likely be Queer Coffee Talk, where it's just like a casual conversation with people within our community, within the LGBTQ plus community to come together and just like chat over coffee and maybe some sweet treats, depending on how the budget goes.
Yeah, and something that's been really fun in IEI is that we're able to collaborate with so many different offices and student groups and everything. So who are some of IEI's most frequent collaborators? Specifically, I think there's a misconception that we are the same office as the Office of Equity and Inclusion and or the Hofstra Cultural Center. So what kind of makes us different from those groups?
So that's a great point because people do oftentimes confuse our office. So I like to think of the Office of Equity Inclusion, OEI, as like the faculty and outside community branch of intercultural engagement and inclusion. So they do a lot of community work, a lot of events where they invite the community to come to campus, a lot of trainings for faculty. They pull students. They have a student diversity equity committee that pulls in students' concerns and work to address those, whether it be from faculty or staff or anybody else at the institution in ways that they can address those. The Cultural Center does more events focused on in the academic world, hosts programs that are sponsored by different departments to encourage students to come out to learn.
Yeah, and then the Identities at Hofstra series, we're often collaborating with Student Government Association,
Yep.
SGA, and I know we talked to them a few episodes back, but they've been really great with helping us with funding and getting us food at a lot of those events, so that's been really fun as well. As Associate Director, you're not just planning events for students, you're doing a whole lot more behind the scenes. So what does a typical day look like for you?
Each day is so unique. So generally, my day consists of quite a bit of emails, but really my office is located in a student space. So students can come to me and ask questions, air grievances, and really just have a space to a safe space to kind of connect with someone who's an administrator here on campus that will listen to them. Not that our administrators won't listen to them, but someone that can come listen to their students, advocate for them. Our office also does a bunch of trainings for different student leaders across campus. So we do trainings for orientation leaders, RA staff, RDs, events management staff, and the list goes on. And we're working to do trainings for faculty and staff, down the road on the topics of equity, diversity, and inclusion. So a lot of our time is spent really planning those trainings, is planning the programs, because when people come to our events, which is wonderful, we want as many people as possible to come to our events. Many people don't see what goes behind an event. What are the logistics involved? How much money is spent? How do we get the things that we get for the program? And how do we make it meaningful with limited resources, and making do with what we have? And as you mentioned with student government, just a special shout out to them, is without them and their support, a lot of programs that IEI does would not be possible. So would like to make sure I do a special shout out to them, because they've been phenomenal in supporting us throughout my time here, even before I joined Hofstra.
Yeah, and like you said, we are in a student space. Like our office, room 260 in the Student Center, is in the SGA suite, and it's also adjacent to a lot of the club offices, including all of the identity organizations that we help with administratively. And so I think that's also a really big facet of inclusion, is just being there in the space, being able to have small conversations, and not just being there where they have to like walk all the way from across campus to get one thing for their club or something. Like we're right there, and so it helps build those relationships. What are some exciting directions that you foresee for IEI? Like, where do you see our office going in the future?
I hope our office expands. Getting more staff people is always a wonderful thing. To create more opportunities, more initiatives, more programs for our students. But overall, I hope to have more learning components within our programs. Not that we don't. Students are in an institution of higher education, so the students here are here to learn, and we want to give students additional opportunities for them to learn outside of the classroom and make connections with people that they may not necessarily connect with, and having them push outside of their comfort zone. Because that's how we can create more of an inclusive world. A lot of people come from rural parts of the U.S. or other parts of the country, or the world, internationally, where they only see people who identify similarly to them. But when they come here, it's kind of like a culture shock. And how do you work with people who don't identify as you or have a completely different upbringing than you? And how can we make those connections? So going back to the learning piece is learning how to work with different people from different cultures, different backgrounds, and have more learning pieces within our overall programs on campus.
Just wrapping things up here, if a parent or even a student would want to get in contact with IEI, how do you find us? How do we find more information? And also, if they were to get in contact with you, what is one thing that you would definitely want them to know?
In terms of getting in contact with us, we always push our social media. Not that we need followers, but we encourage people to follow us, Hofstra IEI. And that's where we post a bunch of information about our programs, identity events, identity programs, highlighting specific days, specific months. etc. And that's just a good way to connect with us.
And that's on Instagram, right?
And that's on Instagram, yes. They can also contact us via email, which is iei@hofstra.edu. In terms of Hofstra, they can find us on hofstra.edu/intercultural engagement and inclusion. They could Google us as well and find our office and information about our office and what we do as well. In terms of a piece of advice or something that we'd like parents to know about our office is that our office is an inclusive space for all students. There's a misconception that intercultural engagement and inclusion only services or works with students of color and students from marginalized communities, but really, we really help and support all students. And the whole point of our office is for students to make connections with other students and students that they may not identify with altogether, to build a community of people, a community of support. Encouraging your children to connect with our office, to come to our amazing events, to encourage them to go to club meetings, to join a club, to make connections, because I've always said that our life is about connections. It's not necessarily what you know, but it's who you know. And you never know if your child is going to go to a club meeting or a club event and meet someone that could be a future business partner, or meet someone that could be a future spouse, or meet someone that can write a really awesome recommendation for them for graduate school or their future job, etc. And life is about those connections and encouraging your sons and daughters and your children to come to our office, to come to our events, just say hi to us and make connections with us as well.
Yeah, we are definitely around and we encourage you to stop by. Hugo, thank you so much for being here today. This is really fun.
Yes, it was.
And I'll see you back at the office. And you've been listening to your Hofstra Vibes Family Podcast. My name is Jenny Helmendaler, and we will see you back here next time.